Yo, what up guys, Ross Scalps here, and in this video, I'm giving you my top 10 movies of 2024. Alright, so this is a video that I've been kind of anticipating for some time now, and I'll just start by saying this. These movies on the list, they're just my own personal opinion, my own subjective opinion. In no way are any of these set in their spots. Like, you might agree, you might disagree. I know this list will be controversial. But also I want to say that this year there wasn't really a lot of great movies. There was a lot of good movies, entertaining movies, but not a lot of great movies, you know? At least in my opinion. And that's just based on the movies that I saw. I saw a lot of the theatrical releases, not every single one. I didn't see a lot of the videos I went to streaming. But that's just my basis on the theatrical releases, my thoughts on how the movies stacked up this year. So with all that out of the way, let's just hop right in to number 10. Number 10. Alright, so for this list, it was hard for me to really narrow down the top 10 because there wasn't 10 that I was like, man, those are all deserve to be in the top 10. There might have been 5, 6, I don't know. Like, not a lot. Maybe half the list, I was like, yeah, that was a top 10 movie. For this spot, I'm going to put Transformers 1. When I watched this movie, I was like dead asleep. I was like in the theater. But then after rewatching it a second time, I thought it was better than I thought. And even going with people who enjoyed it as well, you know, it made me appreciate it more. And I don't even know the Transformers movies much. Like, the live action, I've never seen really any of them. And so going into this, I was, whatever, it looks all right, Chris Hemsworth and stuff. But it was, you know, a solid movie. Surprisingly good. And I know the story was maybe a little generic, or it's, you know, been there, done that. People have already done it before. But I just like the cast and the chemistry and just the visuals and whatnot. And just the story itself, where it's going, you know, where it can lead to. Overall, it was a good introduction to someone who doesn't really know any Transformers movie. You know, I'm looking forward to more, and hopefully, you know, they continue. Number 9. All right, so talking about another sequel that probably wasn't as good as the first, but to me, it was. I think it was better. There was just some things the first one did better, but it's going to be Gladiator 2. You know, this movie, I think, had a lot of good things going for it. Obviously, the entertainment, the action, the fighting scenes were good. Denzel's character in here. Some of the story beats were good, and just tying it all back together. I think they did a good job doing all that. The only thing that's holding me back from putting it this higher is just the twins. Like, come on. Like really? They're the kings of the empire, huh? Or even Lucius, like, he's a cool character, but he's kind of just a random, and he's not good as Maximus. So just stuff like that, and even just some story elements. That's what's refraining me from putting it higher than this spot. But overall, it was a good, entertaining movie, a worthy sequel. And honestly, even if you don't really enjoy movies like this, I'm sure you could have some entertainment with it. Number 8. All right, so this is a movie that I was like kind of anticipating, just because of this actor's performance in here, and that's Speak No Evil. You know, from watching the trailer, James McAvoy, his facial expressions were going crazy. Like, I saw that, I'm like, dang, like, oh, this dude can really sell that awkward seriousness. So when I went to watch this, and you're sitting there in the theater, and granted, I was the only one in the theater, but when I went to watch this, it was entertaining. And, like, just seeing that suspense kind of build up throughout the movie, how he's getting a little creepier, and can't tell if he's lying or being honest. You know, that I think was good throughout the movie. I think the ending was a little predictable on this and maybe a little cliche. That's probably the main thing that's holding me back from putting this higher on the list. It's just how it ended. I just thought was kind of seen before. Been there, done that. Number 7. All right, talk about a movie that low-key probably won't be in anyone's top 10. And for me, that's Never Let Go. Now you might be saying, wait, isn't that the movie about the rope, and if you take it off, the entity gets you, and if you don't, it can't? Got it. You're correct. That is the movie I'm talking about, where you literally have to keep the rope tied to the house, because if you take it off, an evil entity can get to you. Look, it sounds dumb, alright? I know it does. And I was going into this like, man, this is gonna flop. This is gonna be bad. But I came out of it like, dang, that was a good movie. Now, okay, so it really depends. You have to change your perspective on it, because if you go into it with this is a dumb premise, and you just stick with that mentality, you're not going to like it probably. But if you submerge yourself in the world, you play by the rules, I think you'll enjoy this movie. There was some stuff in here like that was actually suspenseful. Whenever they took it off, you're like, dang, bro, like, don't get caught. And the reason why they have to keep it on and whatnot, and then why they're doing what they're doing, even in the middle of this movie, they throw a few twists at you, you know, with the kid and the mom arguing, and the kid was making sense, but the mom was too. And then what, like, was going to happen in that scene, and then what ended up happening, Like, that was crazy. And so you're just like feeling the suspense throughout the movie. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it does get a little cliche or corny at the end, and so that's kind of what stops me from putting this higher. But overall, this was a good, surprisingly suspenseful movie. Honestly, I think if you haven't seen this, at least give it a shot. You might enjoy it. Number 6. All right, so I wasn't even planning on putting this movie in the list. And before like a week ago, I forgot it even existed. Like, I just completely forgot about this movie. And then I was reluctant to go watch it anyway because I was like, end of the year, just post the top 10s, let's get it over with. But I said, screw it, I'll go watch it. It has Timothy Chalamet, and that's a complete unknown. Man, I was surprised with this movie. Like, I didn't know who Bob Dylan was before this movie, really. And even the music that he had, I didn't really know much about it. Folk music? No, I really didn't know much. And what sold this movie for me was Timothy Chalamet. I think his performance in here, maybe I'm just biased, but I like about everything he's in, besides Dune, I guess. But no, Timothy Chalamet in here was really what drew me to it. And after watching this, I just keep thinking about it. I just keep thinking about this movie. I kind of want to rewatch it again. And the music is stuck in my head, right? So overall, this movie, I don't know what it was, but it stuck with me. And it's just a good movie, and I'd be remiss if I didn't put it on this list. And I guess the only reason it's not higher on the list is just because you don't know how much of what they said was true or not. I don't know Bob Dylan, so I don't know how much of this could be true. But besides that, this movie was a good movie. It's a little slower burn, but overall, it's just a good movie, and I just can't stop thinking about it. So I had to put it on the list. Number 5. All right, now we're getting into the top 5 movies of the year, in my opinion. And for me, I just think going into this, I was just anticipating a good movie. This is a franchise that has had a lot of success and also a lot of like kind of flops throughout the years, but for me, it's Alien Romulus. Now, I think this is a good reintroduction to the story, for the people who have been a fan of the franchise and for people who are just getting into it. Kelly Staney and then David Johnson, just them two carrying. And when, Andy goes into Terminator mode, like, that was cool. Like, when he switched modes, he turned into the Terminator. Who doesn't like a Terminator? Like, that was dope. And then they're like begging him to help, and he's just like staring at him. And he got really smart and like really chill. That was cool. And not to mention the creatures in here, and even the one at the end, and the jump scare at the end. And just overall, a pretty good story. While yes, there were some plot holes and some stuff that held it back. You could have shown the aliens more, or there could have been scenes where it's like, okay, come on, how did that not do this? Or how did they escape this? Like, stuff like that, I think held it back from being, a better movie. But overall, I think this is a good reintroduction to the franchise, or introduction if you don't really know it. And yeah, that's going to have to start my top 5. Number 4. All right, guys, so these 4 movies, in my opinion, are the top 4 of the year. Like I said, the major ones in theaters that I did see, I think these are the top 4. And for me, this one was surprising. Surprising that it made it this high, but for me, I'm going to have to say The Wild Robot. I know what you're thinking. The premise sounds simple and kind of, generic, right? A robot lands on an island and has to raise a duck how to fly before migration. That's the movie. And it sounds so simple, but when you're watching it, I just think the chemistry that some of these characters had and just the story that it was telling and having to kind of tie everything together, and really a heartwarming movie, kind of emotional movie too, and really a sleeper like kid movie. And if you're a parent or a mom or something, I'm sure you're going to come out of this enjoying it. I wasn't even, and there were some emotional scenes in here because the robot literally starts as a robot and then it starts to develop feelings, right? And so that alone, just the arc that this robot has, I think is just a good enough investment, and just the story itself as it wraps together. And like I said, it was just a surprisingly good movie. Number 3. All right, so now we're into the top 3, and this movie could have been number 1. And if it is for some people, I'm not even going to be mad, because the experience of this movie alone was a top 3 movie experience ever, probably. Maybe top 5. Just the experience itself. And I'm going to have to say Deadpool and Wolverine. Like I said, the experience of this movie was insane. Like, there was people all dressed out. The promotions were crazy. Theaters were packed. People were clapping, cameos. That's all good, right? But then as you rewatch it a few times, you start to see some plot holes building up and some inconsistencies, and just the villain, I just felt like wasn't that good. And just like having Deadpool and Wolverine, let's have a really cool villain they can fight, but at the end they don't really even fight anyone. While yes, there were some good moments in here with Wolverine, and even Deadpool had some growth, overall, I think the story kind of lacked and the villain kind of lacked. But I'm not even going to fault you if you have this number one because the experience itself was insane. But those are just the reasons why I put it at this spot. Number 2. All right, guys, we are in the top 2 movies of the year, and this is one where I kind of debated, back and forth, which one should be 1, which one should be 2. But for me, I'm going to have to say Sonic 3. I know what you guys might be thinking. Really? Sonic 3, kid movie, huh? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This movie, it just had the action, had the comedy, had the emotional scenes. It was really a Sonic movie turned up a notch. Basically in every aspect. Shadow was cool. Jim Carrey went off. He literally carried. Like, he went all out carry. Like, he went all out. And I just thought overall as a film and a extension to the franchise, this was a good entry. And I think the best one yet. The only reason I can't put this number 1 is just because it is kind of a kid's movie, but the Jim Carrey and the comedy and stuff, I feel like it was getting a little over the top. I enjoyed it, but I've seen a bunch of people kind of not liking that. And it was just kind of becoming too much, And so overall, while the movie does a good job of being an extension of the franchise, a good entry of the franchise, and setting up future movies, I just think a little too much comedy or forcing some things, held it back from number 1. Number 1. All right, guys, the number 1 movie of 2024, in my opinion. Drum roll, please. Bad Boys 4. You might be wondering, wait, where's Dune 2? And you're right, I didn't even have it on my list. And let me explain real quick before you click off if you already haven't. I never got into Dune 1. I don't know the lore. I don't know anything about it. I watched the first one and even then it was kind of a little bit too long of a movie, kind of a slower paced sci-fi movie. I know that this movie might be top 3 on everyone's list this year, but for me personally, I just couldn't get into it. And so that's why I don't have it on here. So yeah, let's get into Bad Boys 4. Look, this movie, I think, was the best in its franchise. Bad Boys 4, the best one yet. The action was good. The comedy was good. Martin Lawrence, Will Smith, they did their job. They did their thing, right? Overall, I don't think this movie had a lot of flaws in terms of just what it was in its own franchise. To me, I just felt like overall they hit every aspect that you want in a movie. They had the action, they had the comedy, they had some emotional scenes, and they just had a story that kind of came together at the end. And I'm not sitting here saying it has the best story or the best writing of any movie that came out this year. I'm just saying, for me personally, I thought it was the best movie of 2024. At least the most entertaining, most fun. Just all around the board, I thought it was just fun, entertaining. And I'm going to have to give the best movie of 2024 to Bad Boys 4. But all right, guys, I know I'm probably going to get flamed in the comments. I see you guys already typing right now. But for me personally, these are the ones that I probably enjoyed the most for the most part. And I'm not criticizing anyone who has any of these movies higher or lower. If you have Dune number 1 or you have Deadpool and Wolverine number 1, or you don't even have Bad Boys on the list or Sonic on the list, I don't even fault you. This is my personal opinion and my subjective opinion. But either way, I'd be curious to see your guys' comments, your guys' reactions. Do you guys agree with some of these movies? Disagree? Have you seen all these movies? And if you do, what do you think? Comment below. I'd be curious to see some people's comments and just their own reaction to, my list. I know it's a unique list. But overall, I think these were all good movies in their own way. And so this is my list for the best movies of 2024. And I just want to say thank you guys for just staying with me and watching, interacting with me throughout the year. It's really meant a lot. And so, yeah, I just appreciate all the comments, likes, interactions, dislikes, bad comments. And with that being said, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.